Retro Hangover is supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank our 16-bit tier subscribers, Lyle McCarnes and Ashton Ruby. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to episode 58 of Retro Hangover.
And hello, retro and classic gamers. Welcome to possibly, perhaps, the most pretentious preloaded preamble projecting peerless, powerful professionalism and positivity, the People's Podcast that goes so post-hastefully, you'd swear we were racing. This is episode 58 of Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, and I am joined, as always, by your host, Shane Youngling Dick Slaying Dragon Koski.
But Chris, it wasn't just the men. It was the women and the children.
Maybe that's not a quote. I don't care. I don't quote that movie. I don't quote any Star Wars movie. I think you're a bunch of nerds. But welcome.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Well, we fucking are.
Welcome to Retro Hangover Podcast. This is a This is a refined podcast, and I must say, we make a lot of dick jokes, so I'm going to try and dial down the dick jokes just a little bit.
Oh, why? Have you received feedback?
No. It's just so hard to keep doing them week after week. It's a stiff job to live up to. I just think they're hitting kind of limp, and I don't know if the bandwidth that I'm providing really has the girth to keep making them happen. But, I think we'll survive.
Yeah. No, we'll thrust on.
Yes.
For sure. Mm-hmm. So Chris,
yeah.
How you doing? What you been up to since the last time we talked?
Which was like, what, a week ago? I love how everything works
they don't
out.
need to know that.
They don't need to know that. But I'm going to date this episode because I'm going to go on a mini rant about limited run games, because fuck limited run
fantastic.
games. Fuck them. And I'm going to say this. So I've for those of you who don't know, I've gotten into limited run games, which I don't know is a good thing or a bad thing. It could be both. It's a mini obsession, and I don't know. That's up to you whether or not I want to get into it. I kind of am not proud of myself, but I have gotten into limited run games because I think it's cool. And I do appreciate this fact. I have told Shane, I appreciate their business model, because as I think I have said back in our original episode of Physical v Digital, when I was blisteringly drunk, which is only slightly more drunk than I usually am on this podcast, I mentioned that the bad thing about digital media is that for some reason it costs just as much, if not more, than physical media. And I do think in limited run has done a good job of bridging that gap, because you can now pre-order, it's not always in limited batches, a physical game if you want it, and if you do want the digital game to just play it, you can get it probably for cheaper, usually for cheaper, on the console or platform of your choice.
Sure.
In any case, they announced 2 games this week. They are coming out on February 28th, so I'm dating this episode. So by the time you hear this episode, it has already happened, and my frustration has already been ignited. The 2 games. So first of all, first problem, these 2 games. The first one is these games are coming out in limited quantities of 2,500 copies per game.
I mean, they are called limited run after all.
Well, they haven't been doing that a lot recently, but I digress. There'll be a total of 5,000 for each game, but one's the collector's edition. And the collector's edition is $75, so why the fuck would I want to buy that?
Because you have a problem?
I do have a problem. But
go on.
The one game I'm probably going to still try and get, and that is The Secret of Monkey Island, which they are re-releasing for the Sega CD, because a copy of that game goes for around $100, and it's $40, and it's brand new. It comes with new packaging and stuff like that. Not a bad deal. And I've always wanted to play.
Do you get any like extra shit with it? Do you get like some nice Guybrush Threepwood art or something?
If you get the collector's edition for $75.
Okay.
But the collector's edition also doesn't have the cool, nostalgic Sega CD casing.
Okay.
But it's only 2,500 copies, and they release them at 10 o'clock in the morning, which by that time I'll probably be sitting in a meeting wishing I was not in a meeting. And then the other one is going to be happening at 6 p.m. at night, 1800 as I call it because I'm a military guy. And I think I have plans that night. I'm going to be drinking whiskey with a couple friends over at the Hilltop, which is a nice little pretentious little douchebaggy area. But they're going to have whiskey tasting, so who am I to complain? So it's going to be really tough squeezing that game in.
This just sounds like the same issue with like sneakerheads. It's the same thing where like some of those companies have gotten so far up their own ass about like limited edition releases of things that you have to have like an app downloaded and be like on it and enter like some sort of queue or some shit in order to like get a chance to purchase like $600 shoes. This just sounds a lot like that to me, which is also insane.
But it's usually pretty fair if they limit the amount of copies you can get. So you can prevent scalpers from buying a bunch and then going online and reselling them on their Amazon stores. Sure, I'm not taking a pot shot at anybody, Tiger. We love you, but I'm just saying that's what happens, and it does make me angry. But I'm letting my feelings be known. I'm not bottling them up, okay? They're being known. In any case.
No, that's fine. It's healthy. You know, get it out.
Let it out. Fuck you, Amazon sellers. Except you, Tiger. Love you. And so it's going to be hard to get that game. Like I said, I've never played The Secret of Monkey Island before. Being able to play it on the Sega CD would be great. And for you, Shane, they are going to be, I guess, releasing a version for the PC, physical version, if you're at all interested in that. Because I know you like that game.
So I do. I don't know if I have enough of the nostalgia for it to want to do that necessarily, but also I think it's just funny that you kind of refer to it as a Sega CD game because I've only ever known it as a PC game, and I think it was primarily a PC game anyway.
Oh, I'll totally admit it. I think of it as a PC game when I think of it. But it's coming out for the Sega CD, and it did come out for the Sega CD in its heyday. And it's cool to just have to play it on a Sega CD, right? Have a physical copy. Because a physical copy of a DOS game right now, it'd be a giant pain in the ass for me to play. And don't say it wouldn't be. It just would be because my good computer doesn't have an optical drive. So I'd have to load it up in a USB stick, and what the fuck is the point of that? So,
I mean, no, it totally would be. But I mean, also like GOG exists. So if you weren't really stuck on that whole physical thing, you could just play the game. But yeah, I see where you're coming from.
It's a problem, Shane. Let me deal with my problem in my own way.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fine. It's like the amiibo thing, man.
Yes.
You know?
Problem number two I have, not my personal problem I have at Limited Run Games this week, is pertinent to this episode because the second game is Star Wars Rebel Assault for the Sega CD, which, again, 2,500 copies at $40 and another 2,500 copies at $75. Again, I do not want to pay $75 for a bunch of fucking worthless trinkets, so if I can get it, I would get the $40 one. Problem with that is that if I went to eBay and looked for Star Wars Rebel Assault, complete in box, decent disc condition, I could probably get it for $20 to $25.
So why don't you just do that then?
Because I'm pissed off. Because I heard in Retronauts podcast, because I do listen to other podcasts when I'm not listening to this one, or talking about listening to this one, because this one is great, of course. I was hearing they did an interview with Limited Run Games, and they talked about how they're going to come out with Rebel Assault months ago. So I kind of planned and limited my limited run purchases, in order to plan to get Rebel Assault for the Sega CD, because that was a game I played way back in the day on the Sega CD at my friend's house. I didn't have a copy myself, but I did play at a friend's house, and I did enjoy it. So now a new copy is coming out. Not only is it more expensive, I mean, it's going to be in better shape, obviously. It's going to be a new case. It's going to have a new instruction manual. It's probably going to have some cool shit in the instruction manual. It's probably going to be color. I don't know if the Sega CD one is or not. They usually weren't. And the disc is going to be less prone to disc rot because it's going to be a newer disc, probably more protected, yada, yada, yada. But the simple fact that I can go and get a physical copy of the same fucking game for less is insulting. It's very insulting. I am not down with it. If you're going to re-release games, limited run games, and they did this again with other Star Wars games, is they released the Game Boy games and the Nintendo games and the N64 games in blister packs. do you?
It's as if 1,000 collector nerds all cried out and were suddenly silenced.
It's like, they're so cool to look at. And then you realize, if you ever want to play the fucking thing, you're going to have to destroy the entire purpose of why you got it, which makes it look cool. I don't fucking get it. And, like, I'm not, that's like Shadows of the Empire. They resold Shadows of the Empire to people for like 40 or 50 fucking dollars because it's in a blister pack and it was in a purple cartridge.
I mean, purple cartridge is pretty cool.
But you know what's also cool? You can go and get Shadows of the Empire at any local video game store for like $8. So if you're going to...
Also true.
If you're going...
But they're not purple.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. But so if you're going to re-release games like Snatcher, which are like $500, $600, and no one can buy. But it's going to be on the TurboGrafx Mini, which comes out in March, which is great, but it's going to be in all Japanese. So how about you do that limited run? Because that would actually serve a purpose, like you did with, what the fucking game is? Metal Storm, even though Retrobit did it. That's how you do it. You don't fucking re-release video games for the sake of re-releasing them and then charge more when their current market value is. That's dumb. Secret of Monkey Island, good move, though. I hope I can get a copy. Please let me get a copy. I'm going to be very sad if I don't get a copy. But in terms of video games, I'll just be brief. I played about 4 hours of Evolution Worlds because busy week. Again, just had a paper in college due. So that is my short and brief summary of what I've been up to, Shane. So how about yourself?
I haven't had anything to, rant about lately, so I can't really match you on that one.
Yeah, fuck limited run. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, you're welcome. But I don't know. Actually, just mostly a lot of the same stuff right now. I haven't really been playing a lot of new things. I kind of haven't had time to do a lot of new gaming just because we've kind of been traveling around and work stuff, and that's probably not going to change for at least another couple weeks now, just because some stuff is ramping up at work, and that's always a good time. But yeah, man. I have been putting a little bit more time into Sonic Racing All-Stars Transformed, or whatever the fuck that title is.
Such a good game. Sonic and Sega.
Solid ass game.
Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing Transformed, by the way.
There you go. Yeah. That is a lot of fun. I'm thoroughly enjoying playing that. I'm playing it on Steam, and yeah, it's good. It's I hesitate to say whether I like it more than Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, because I really like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But it definitely has some things going for it that I would say it does better than Mario Kart, for sure. I think the whole thing behind the reason it's even called Transformed, I think, is really cool. And is something that, fucking Diddy Kong Racing did back in the day, but Mario Kart still has yet to really do, which is, sort of seamlessly transitioning between different types of vehicles and stuff, like mid-race.
But they have a glider.
Which I think is a cool idea.
They have a glider. And the wheels go sideways, and they're magnetic.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, I guess that's true. Technically, they do some form of transformation, but
yeah,
nowhere near as like thorough as All Stars, but or fucking Diddy Kong, like I said.
Do you know what I think is Sonic and Sega All Stars Racing Transformed? I'll just say Sonic Racing Transformed for brevity.
Sure. Yeah.
What's better about it is it has more personality.
Yeah. The tracks are way more dynamic too.
Yeah,
like
they're not better designed. I don't think they're better designed.
No,
but they're not horribly designed. It's not like a huge difference,
right? But the cool thing that they do that Mario Kart tracks don't do is that, like, most of them, every single lap that you go around, it changes in some way,
right?
So it keeps you on your toes, and it keeps the experience fresh too, which I think is cool. There's something to be said for, I guess, keeping the track more or less the same so that you can just get really, really good at that one particular path or whatever. But I think it's cool. And interestingly enough, although in a very, very scaled back version, the game that we're talking about today does a little bit of that. Also, fun fact, by the way, Episode 1 Racer was also re-released by Limited Run Games, or at least the N64 cartridge version was.
It was. As was the
A
sequel.
little while ago. Yeah.
For the PS4.
That's an excellent segue into our main topic for today.
Which is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, the podcast racer.
That's right.
So today,
Podcast racing.
as he said, today's episode is Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, where you race around in a pod, not cast. And
No.
it was really heavily attached to the movie of the same name back at the time. Not Episode 1 Racer, just Star Wars Episode 1. The Phantom Nightmare. Menace. Disaster.
But the Phantom Midichlorians.
The Phantom Mediocrity. So Shane, please give us a brief history on Star Wars Episode 1 Racer.
For generations, the galactic pod racing circuit has thrilled citizens of the Outer Rim territories with its fast and dangerous contests of repulsor and turbine-driven land vehicles. Amid the ruffian and racing elite, one champion stands above the rest. His name is Sebulba, a cunning and ruthless pilot who wins by any means necessary. To challenge him, all the best pod race pilots gather on the desert planet Tatooine for the legendary Bunta Classic, determined to claim the title of fastest pod racer in the galaxy. It might be fair to say that not too many people could have predicted a racing video game would turn out to be one of the better licensed Star Wars titles. Basing itself entirely on one extended sequence in 1999's Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, the game puts players in the seat of one of 23 high-speed pod racers, competing in a tournament against the galaxy's best pilots, spanning 25 varied tracks set across 8 unique planets. Episode 1 Racer also features John Williams' iconic theatrical score, sound effects taken directly from the film, as well as several stars reprising their roles via voiceover, including Jake Lloyd as Anakin, Andrew Secombe as Watto, Louis MacLeod as Sebulba, and Greg Proops and Scott Capurro as the two heads of the race announcer Fode and Bede, respectively. Development for Episode 1 Racer was done completely in-house by LucasArts, taking roughly 2 years to complete. The team would include 2 project leads, Brett Tosti and John Knowles, responsible for 1996 Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, and as such would begin initial development shortly after Shadows' completion. Fashioning an accurate simulation of in-world physics proved to be a challenge for the team, as they were only provided short clips from the film to work off of. According to Tosti, their approximations turned out to be surprisingly close, though the team wouldn't truly know for sure until the very end of the project. The developers were also provided technical specifications for all of the pod racers taken directly from the film, with which to model their in-game counterparts. Knowles emphasized that their primary goal was to always provide the player with a strong sense of speed, hoping to make it, quote, feel like an eyeball-peeling racing game, where you're going so fast, you're just nervous. Episode 1 Racer would be shown at E3 1999, with Anakin Skywalker actor Jake Lloyd making an appearance to promote the game. Promotion for the game was substantial, with a reported marketing budget of approximately $10 million. The game would be released shortly thereafter, making its North American debut on Windows PCs and Nintendo 64 home consoles on May 18th of 1999. The title would also be ported to a number of other systems, including Macintosh computers, the Sega Dreamcast, and the Game Boy Color. A Sony PlayStation version had been announced, but was ultimately never released. The game was met with largely average reviews. Game Rankings aggregation puts Episode 1 Racer at somewhere around 75% across most platforms, with the Game Boy Color being the only significant outlier at a 69.4%. Despite a mostly tepid response, the game has still managed to be consistently placed on several best Star Wars games lists, and has even garnered a Guinness World Record for best-selling sci-fi racing game, with worldwide sales totaling 3.12 million units, beating out notable series like Wipeout and F-Zero. And that is your brief history of Star Wars Episode 1 Racer.
Wait, really? It beat out Wipeout and F-Zero.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too.
Wow.
First of all, I was surprised that it got a Guinness World Record for anything, really.
Yeah.
It has sold more than either of those franchises, which actually, to me, just goes to show that Nintendo or whoever needs to step up their fucking game and make a new F-Zero.
Well, not total. Like, not the total of the Wipeout series. Just as beat out every single game singularly against them.
Oh, well, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, the thing that blows me away is more Wipeout than F-Zero, because that explains why F-Zero hasn't gotten a sequel in fucking forever. I mean, but Wipeout's gotten lots of sequels. That was wow, that's nuts.
I mean, I guess that's what happens when you have one of the largest, most recognizable licenses backing your game, right?
I guess. I mean, it also helps that the game was out on 3 different platforms, whereas Wipeout was pretty much exclusively locked to PlayStation, F-Zero, and Nintendo. I think that...
Yeah, I mean, that certainly helps. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Wow, that's crazy. But in any case, so why did we pick this episode? Because recently we have been a little bit of relevancy whores, so I'm not even going to hide that. There's no relevance, I don't think, to this. Okay, we'll just go with they announced Clone Wars. More episodes are coming out. Sure, okay, let's just roll with that.
Yeah, last season too.
Yeah,
which I'm happy about, by the way, because I always appreciate when I know that a series is ending, because then it gives me like an end goal to get to. Uh-huh. And because I started watching Clone Wars streaming, I think it's on Netflix or probably Disney Plus now. But,
Disney Plus.
Yeah, and I think I'm only getting like a couple episodes like into the first season, but then I was looking and I was like, man, there's like fucking like 6 something seasons of that show. Uh-huh. And I hate starting a show and then knowing that like it's still going on, but at least now I have like a, there's an end, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So
more Darth Maul, please.
Yes, please.
We definitely chose this episode on the anticipation that both of us would go back and play this game and love it. And remember all the nostalgic feels we had back in the day when we played this for presumably Shane the N64, and me definitely the N64. I do remember having a great time in this game back in the day. But before I go into it, maybe I just should. I'm just going to give my introduction because you gave the history, and then we'll go into you.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
I am introducing myself into my own segment. Thank you. Thank you, me. You are great.
Not the first time that's happened.
And won't be the last. In any case... So, like I said, I started playing this game on the N64. As everyone can imagine, back at this time, Star Wars fever was crazy. The insane cynicism and saltiness for Episode 1 hadn't reached a fever point yet. People didn't hate the movie as much as they do now, back then, because, fandoms are nuts. So people, genuinely, I don't say they all loved the movie. Adults hated the movie, but I was a kid. Well, I wasn't really a kid. I was a teenager. I didn't mind it. I think I was a teenager at this time. I had just turned a teenager, so I didn't mind it. Mm-hmm. Getting a racing game like Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer, it was a really good game. I got it for the N64, and maybe I don't remember if I got it or rented it, but I played it a lot. And one of the notable things about the game was the fact that it came with the expansion pack, and it had higher textures, and at the time, it looked beautiful. I wouldn't necessarily say it moved really fast, but I will say that the game did really set itself apart from other games visually on the N64. And I didn't play the Dreamcast version until I got myself a copy a few years ago. So much after the release. And that version, of course, I'll get into more of that later. It looks better than the N64. It looks good for 1999. I don't think it takes advantage of the Dreamcast necessarily, but it's still a very good-looking game for the time. I think that's really what defined Star Wars Episode 1. That, and it was a lot better than Dash Rendar running through the streets of whatever fucking city he was in, slowing down, or he would crash every 5 fucking seconds. So it was really a good time.
You didn't like that speeder bike level?
I don't know many people who do. I don't know many people who really like that game genuinely and played it within the last, I don't know, ever. But it was...
I still genuinely like it.
It was a good game of the time. It was really kind of monumental because Star Wars games, you did have Shadows of the Empire, but there was really a dearth of them because you had Masters of Teras Kasai, and that game sucked. and you really didn't have anything else. I don't think Battlefront was out yet. Was Star Wars TIE Fighter out yet? If it was, not a lot of people were playing it because PC gaming was kind of locked off to its own little world at the time. So
so that's what I was I was going to say is I am almost 100% certain that TIE Fighter was already out by then, and that was a huge deal like in the PC gaming community.
I think there was another one that was out too. I'm kind of screwed up on my Star Wars PC time period crap, whatever that word is. I'm missing out on it. But that's my personal experience with it. I played a lot back in the day. I played it again recently for this episode, and I'll get into my feelings about that. But before I do that, Shane, please give us your brief history. Your personal history, not the brief history, because you already did that, on Star Wars Episode 1.
I'll start over again if you want me to.
What is your brief history? What have you done with it?
Yeah, so I never actually owned this game, but I rented it like a fucking billion times, so I probably should have just bought it.
Right.
Or more accurately, my parents should have bought it. But no, this was one of the N64 carts that I consistently rented from, I want to say, well, it was a Blockbuster, but I think before that there was a local place called like Home Vision Video where I lived, and we used to rent stuff from there too. Yeah, when I couldn't find something else that I like, something new that I wanted to try out or whatever, this was always like one of my default go-tos if I was going to rent something, like when we went to go pick up like, VHSs to watch or something. So I actually played this quite a bit, and it was a favorite of both myself and my brother because obviously we could race split screen, and so that was always a good time. And of course, as I said, it was an N64 version. First of all, I never played any of the other versions, and at the time wasn't even aware that they existed, if I'm being perfectly honest. At that point in my life, being still kind of a kid, I was sort of kind of in my own little bubble, right? I think most of us were. I don't know how kids are these days. I'm assuming with the internet that they kind of maybe know more. If they're into video games, they probably know more about the industry as a whole than I think we did at the same age, because I was just in this very small bubble of influence where all I knew was N64, and that was pretty much it, unless I played something at someone else's house or I occasionally rented a PlayStation or something. But yeah, man, so that's pretty much me. We put a lot of time into that. I remember definitely finishing the tournament stuff, and I don't know if I actually beat like the invitational levels because those are pretty intense, but I know we did quite a bit for sure.
So I can I'm looking at the brief history and kind of reviewing it again. And one of the things I'm noticing why this game is considered to be an N64 game prominently over maybe a PC and a Dreamcast game is, first of all, again, 1999 was not really a big time for mainstream PC gaming. Like, anyone who was playing PC gaming mostly was playing it for Blizzard games, if they dabbled into consoles. And we kind of touched on that in our Diablo episode. If you were playing console and PC games, you were playing Blizzard games for the most part, or maybe Command and Conquer. So anything else was very, very foreign. It was in its own planet for the most part. That's my personal experience. Shane, am I wrong?
No, I mean, again, that's largely anecdotal because it kind of matches up with my experience too. I mean, I was way more into PC gaming at the time, and I want to say I think I was more than you were, and even then, the majority of my stuff that I played was just a shitload of Blizzard games. And yeah, I mean, like Westwood, was big then because of Command and Conquer. So obviously I had that. And I don't know if 1999 had Tiberian Sun come out by then.
I think it did.
So definitely that. I mean, there were some other, definitely big players in the PC space besides Blizzard. I mean, you had like the adventure game stuff actually from like LucasArts and Sierra and things like that were pretty big.
But console gamers didn't really get into them, I don't think.
No. They were definitely, there was a lot less crossover than there is now, where everything is kind of released on every platform all the time.
And on top of that, the Dreamcast version. The Dreamcast, of course, launched on September 9th, 1999, famously. So it wasn't even a launch game for the Dreamcast, even though it came out on the N64 in May of 99. It didn't come out in the Dreamcast until April of 2000.
Right.
So by the time it came out, people had if you wanted to play it, you could play it on your N64. I think that's why when people think of this game right off the get, it is an N64 game that really utilized the expansion pack.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair statement.
Right. So moving on to the actual game itself. Once again, I think a lot of what drove this is the fact Star Wars had come back. Star Wars was relevant again. Star Wars had been revitalized. Episode 1 came out. Not everybody hated it then. I know, Shane, you hate Episode 1. Am I wrong?
I, like a lot of Star Wars fans, have kind of come around to where we have gotten past the hatred stage and now just ironically like it for like its meme potential, for nothing else.
I'm just so glad they never made the mistake of releasing another trilogy.
Yeah, no, that would be terrible.
That'd be awful. It feels like they would just do it for money.
Yeah, I mean, you can only, create a giant planet-sized death machine so many times.
But at this time, back in the late 90s, Episode 1 coming out was a huge deal. Lucasfilms, they had just promoted the shit out of the Episode 4, 5, and 6. They were coming back out on VHS, where you could see it where Han shot first. That's correct. Han shot first, right?
I mean, yes. Okay. But I think, but by that.
Oh, that was the revision. That was the remastered versions. I'm sorry. That's when they ruined them. Sorry.
Yeah. The last time the actual theatrical versions of those movies were ever released to a home distribution was on Laserdisc.
That's correct. Yes. And the VHS before that, later Laserdisc. But in any case, they did this big promotion. They re-released and remastered and added a bunch of unnecessary stupid crap to 4, 5, and 6.
AKA fucked them up. But yes, go on.
So, and then they released Episode 1 and people were psyched for it. They're hyped for it. And people my age loved it. I have no idea how the adults felt because I didn't care. And
they were collectively shitting themselves because a new Star Wars movie was coming out. And
I'm talking about after it came out. After it came out.
Oh, I feel like immediately after it came out, there wasn't. I think people needed time to process what they just witnessed. So like the amount of vitriol that those movies get, like I don't think that came until a little bit later.
Yeah, it didn't happen then. Like people didn't mind it then. I think it just became cool to hate on it. But I think that's what drives Star Wars Episode 1 Racer so much is it was a Star Wars game that wasn't bad. I mean, I think you had Rogue Squadron around this time for the N64, which also wasn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
But this was kind of more a unique take because everything Star Wars had been to that point was an action platformer. It was a space shooter. This was a racer. This was different.
This is pod racing.
This is pod racing, and you're supposed to be going super fast. I don't think you necessarily do when you compare it to games like Extreme G or F-Zero, but you are moving at a very fast pace. More like Wipeout, a little bit faster than Wipeout. So very intense, gorgeous graphics. It's fun enough for the time. I'll get more on that. And it's fine. It's fine. And I think that's why a lot of people have really good nostalgic feelings for it.
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, so I could start talking about some of the things that I wanted to discuss about this, but I kind of feel like you really want to talk about your let's say your revised opinion of of Episode 1 Racer.
On our last episode of Dragon Ball Hangover, podcast Hangover,
Goku pats someone else's vagina.
Yes, and calls it pillow. So I played it again recently, and maybe it's because of the version I played. I did play the Dreamcast version, so if I'm off base on this, please blow me up in the comments because that means that we have people who care. And I was thoroughly unimpressed. The first thing I noticed is the game is incredibly easy. Stupid easy. The menus are archaic and confusing. So for the Dreamcast version, the menu comes up and you get, I think, tournament, free play, time attack, and internet. Now, obviously, I can't do internet, so that's not going to happen with my fucking Dreamcast. I'm sure if I had a broadband modem, it would happen, but it's not going to happen
there's
now.
Somebody out there running a private Dreamcast Episode 1 Racer server.
Oh, I'm sure. There's always like
probably the Ukraine. I don't know.
Probably, and you'll blow up your Dreamcast if you play it. Well, probably not. It's probably cool, but okay. So I go into tournament. So I'm looking for options. What can I do? I can't get an option. I have to choose a file. So I choose a file, and then I have to choose a racer, and then I go to a race. So before you can choose options or have any idea what the fuck is going on, you have to choose your character, and then you have to choose your racer, and then you have to select a race or a tournament to run, and then you get to the options. Now you might say, Chris, isn't that Mario Kart? Shut the fuck up. No. That's not how this works. And it's really weird. Uh-huh. So you press like tournament, and then you like go to a bar. I'm assuming it's a bar. And then just it's quiet. There's like nothing going on in the background.
I'll say I'm pretty sure like it's Watto's shop, I think is what it actually is.
I don't give a fuck what it is. It's weird. It's fucking weird. Right? You see all the typical alien weird shit from Star Wars that you're going to expect to fucking see. And then you go up and you choose your racer.
There's a random Jawa hanging out.
I've seen different things every single time I go into there, which is a nice touch. But it's still weird. Like you walk up, you like go towards where the terminal is, you see one staring at the terminal and they walk off. And it's always the same kind of animation, just a different fucking dude. So you go up and then you pick your fucking racer and then you pick your race and then you can go to the options. Then you can
I will agree with you that that's weird. Like that's actually, and that's not just that version. That's like every version of the game. And yeah, that threw me off too. Actually, it was something that I noticed playing it again recently that I was like, why the shit can't I just go to modifying my pod racer or whatever directly from the start? Why do I have to pick something first to get to that? So yeah, I hear you on that. It's weird.
It's just so disengaging. It just sets like every other game at the racing game. I'm not just talking about game. I'm talking racing games. Like Mario Kart, it is the expected pick up and play kind of feel. Like I never felt like I think you could select an options menu from the main menu of Mario Kart. Like at least the basic options were available from it. You could do the same and Gran Turismo is another game where you can upgrade things. I know that's more of a simulation than fucking Episode 1 Pod Racer. I get that because I don't see real pod
you don't
racers.
Know. As far as you know, this is the most accurate pod racing simulation.
I mean, it happened in a galaxy far, far away a long, long time ago. A long time ago. Not a long, long time ago. A long time ago. So it's more intuitive. It's more inviting. It's better. And they had these things and examples that they could pick from. But it's just so drab. It just feels so empty. And the visuals, it's a Dreamcast game. I know they cleaned a lot of it up. But it's so muddy. It's still, I can tell it's an N64 port.
So I'm going to be honest. That was one thing that when you were talking about how like at the time, the graphics with like the expansion pack or whatever were like really good
gorgeous
for the time period.
Yes.
Sure, I guess. I feel like I actually disagree on that point, and I think I like this game more than you do because I mean the cantina area is dark and muddy as hell. It's hard to see anything.
But 99, that was fine.
Well, I mean, was it?
Yes.
I don't know if it was ever fine. It was just that like we dealt with it because we didn't have a fucking choice. I mean, that's like, I played the shit out of Gauntlet Legends, but like most of the levels in that game, you can't tell a tree from a fucking goblin.
But you also have to look back at the time of 1998, 1999, and what was considered to be great graphics. And I look at a lot of those games back then. Just for example, Siphon Filter was supposed to have decent graphics. Go play that game now and tell me it has good graphics.
Right. No, I get if you're looking at it now, obviously you're going to be like, this looks like ass. But yeah. I mean, even then I recall like thinking that it was just really hard to see things. Like the cantina area, not keep calling it that. It's not. It's fucking Watto's shop or whatever. But like, it's
Watto's dungeon, S&M slog.
His quote unquote workshop.
Right.
But no, I mean, and even I don't know. I guess maybe I'm coloring this with like hindsight or something. I just feel like the graphics weren't even that terribly impressive. Like, I mean, it's hard because by the very nature of what they're trying to recreate, a lot of those levels are just a whole lot of brown and green, right?
Well, not all of them. Some of them have diverse color palettes, but they're still drab.
Well, right. So they do, and there are some, and I think they did what they could with what they had. I'm just saying that I don't know. I don't feel like I was ever like thoroughly impressed by
but the graphics don't make a game. Graphics don't make a game. Comes down to the gameplay. So first of all, I'm happy that the Dreamcast version has these full motion videos that I guess the PC version has as well, correct? They have these full motion videos.
It did, yeah. The N64 version could not do that due to hardware memory constraints and whatnot. So instead, they did their best to. So like when you load up the N64 version of this game, you get like a little intro cutscene of Anakin flying around on the track from the movie with like Sebulba and shit over there, but it's all rendered with in-game assets. It's not actually a cutscene,
which is probably for the best because pre-rendered Anakin looks fucking weird.
Yeah, it really does, actually. But it is kind of a bummer though, because I thought it was pretty cool playing the PC version of this leading up to us recording this and seeing those cutscenes at the beginning of every different like race track for the different worlds or whatever.
I appreciated that
personally, just because I never got that, having only played the N64 version when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm. But I did appreciate the cutscenes prior to the race. I thought they were pretty cool. I hope they build a narrative. I don't understand why they're like, "Oh, here's your host, this character." I'm like, I don't care who this person is. Why does this even matter?
Because it's the announcer from the movie, obviously. Oh, you mean like the different hosts on every planet?
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, here's the host of this planet." I'm like, am I supposed to know who this fucking person is? Is this like the fucking Return of the Jedi? And just here's a random character you're supposed to give a fuck about. And I don't.
No, I'm pretty sure that was just like their attempt at doing some sort of world building or something, which are just throwaway characters. But
you can't make an important character for world building, then have them die at the end of it. That's fucking dumb.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. It's almost as if you like marketed the shit out of one particular character to be some sort of like super badass villain, and then he dies 3/4 of the way through the first movie of a trilogy. But you wouldn't do that because that'd be crazy.
Second movie of it. Oh, wait.
No.
That's the first trilogy. That's the second trilogy, also the first.
Yes.
Star Wars has made some terrible decisions, haven't they?
They really have. We should just turn this into a... This is now a Star Wars critique episode where we're going to talk about how, though George Lucas had some really great ideas, he never would have been as successful as he was if he wasn't surrounded by the right people at the right time. And it shows because he was given the reins to everything for episodes 1, 2, and 3, and they turned out to be trash fires. But we're not going to do that.
3 wasn't a trash fire. 3 was not a trash fire.
That's for later. 3's okay. Like, compared to the other 2, it's tolerable.
2 is a trash fire.
I mean, you might say that episode 3, compared to episodes 1 and 2, had the high ground.
It had the high ground. 1 was the chosen one.
Yes.
In any case, so you start you start the race. You get to the race. I don't know how if you can get a boost off the get like in Mario Kart. No idea.
You can actually if you hit the gas or whatever right as 1 comes on the screen, you will get a boost.
Oh, nice. That's nice to know. But in any case, here's the beginning of my disappointment.
Okay.
So I understand it's an N64 game.
Yes.
But it's on the Dreamcast now. I'm playing it on the Dreamcast. And it was on the PC.
Sure.
Dreamcast has analog shoulder buttons. Something I didn't understand in 1999 I didn't like. Why like the pedal would be on the R and L triggers when they were analog. I was like, why is this? This is dumb. Now I realize why it's cool. Because you can increase your speed correctly and adjust it with analog triggers like a pedal. So, cool. Doesn't do that in the Dreamcast version. A is the go button.
Yep.
And everything else just kind of doesn't really matter. You have the go button, and maybe you brake. Maybe. Everything else is kind of fucking worthless. The track design is okay. It reminds me a lot of, again, Extreme G and Wipeout, and I don't like Wipeout. I know I'm weird. I like Extreme G, but I do realize that that's probably with rose-tinted glasses. I haven't played it in a long time, and that is the first game that made me vomit from playing it. But
wow,
yes. So it's moving fast enough. It's cool. It looks decent enough. But I realize that the graphics are still they look very N64-ish, and it just really sticks out. And it's still this looking kind of experience. And then I listen to the music and the sound. and the music while racing sounds heavily compressed. This is on the Sega Dream. I can understand for the N64. Completely get it. Because it's a cartridge. You can't have CD quality sound. I'm on the Dreamcast now. Why is my sound still compressed? Why does it still sound like everything is muffled? Maybe it's just me.
I'm starting to get the sense that a lot of your gripes about this game are like platform centric.
It might be. Maybe it's platform centric. I'm complaining about things that I expected more out of a superior platform, allegedly. And I can brag on the Dreamcast. We're not even going to start on that one because, oh shit. But I go into the race. The first race, I win by like 1 million seconds.
Mm-hmm.
As I progress through, I start to realize I'm winning every race by a lot. Even the races where I crash and die and somehow just get right back on the track and nothing happens to me. And I realized what happened later is that my upgrades that I'm purchasing in between races are getting damaged. It doesn't really seem to affect anything, but they're happening, supposedly. And now my top speed is going down, but it's not really impacting anything on the race. I'm still winning. And then there's one race that has a ramp that I'm supposed to jump. And I go off this ramp, and I keep crashing into the fucking chasm.
I know exactly what one you're talking about.
I try pulling back on the controller, doesn't work. I try boosting off the ramp, doesn't work. I just tried hitting it correctly, doesn't work. But guess what? I still win. So it's not like there's any consequence to me not being able to hit this jump. I have no idea how to hit this jump, but I'm still winning. So I feel good. Just like a child watching episode 1. It's like if you're 5 years old and you watch episode 1 and you like Jar Jar Binks, and then you grow up.
Yeah, it was a more innocent time when you didn't realize why midichlorians was one of the worst things that George Lucas ever did.
It was a mistake. So I guess you're going to offer the defense of this game.
I am, actually.
Okay.
So about that jump real quick. I know exactly the one you're talking about. And you actually, if you actually don't even need to boost to make that jump. All you have to do is just hit it like going at, your top speed or whatever, and pull back while you're in the air, and you'll hit it. Like that's all you have to do. And if you want to be super safe about it, just boost right beforehand, and you'll be fine.
Never worked.
But
okay,
But
I'll believe you.
For the record, I did crash into that jump the first couple times replaying this game because I forgot like kind of what I needed to do to do it. But and to be fair, you could say that is a little unintuitive, which, by the way, before I go into some of my points I want to discuss about it, that is one thing, I guess, that sort of dovetails off of that, which is that there are a lot of unintuitive things regarding the design of the game, mostly the track design. I will agree with you that the track design is not the best. Some are better than others, and they are interesting, so I'll give them that. But there are some that are just made. It's almost like they were made for a different game, because it seems like the designers didn't take into account that you're going like 500 miles an hour in a pod. Like there's certain ones where they will just give you a series of like these S curves that are so tight that you will almost inevitably crash every single time. There's actually one track in particular, and I don't remember exactly which one it was now, but there's a portion where you come around like a pretty soft bend, and then you go up a hill and you jump off of a cliff onto the next part of the track down below, but it's a blind jump, so you can't see where you're landing.
Is that the ice level?
No. It's like a level that's like in the air or something, but it's like the track is surrounded by like metal grating, which also makes it hard to see, by the way. You do this blind jump, and then you immediately land on the track below, and the only thing indicating that you're supposed to turn literally immediately is like, the yellow and black like arrows painted on the wall directly in front of you. But if you don't know that you have to like hard bank to the right as soon as you land, you will just face plant into that wall every single time.
But the thing is that there's no consequence to it.
Well, there is and there isn't. Like, I agree that, first of all, you can, if you are racing well, like if you don't crash at all, then you will destroy every one of these races, with maybe the exception of the invitational ones. I haven't gotten to play those again since way back in the day, so maybe those are more challenging. I don't know. But the rest of the tracks, yeah, you will win by like a million miles. And even if you crash once or twice, typically they won't catch up with you, or if they do, you can regain your lead pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think in playing this game, I played about 2.5 of the, I don't know what you want to call them, cups. They don't call them that in this game, but
just tournaments or 2.5 tournaments.
Sure, tournaments. I completed about 2.5 of the what is it? It is 3, right? I think it's just 3 plus the invitationals.
Yeah.
So I got through most of it, and through all of that, only one track I had to replay because I didn't get first place, and that was only because actually it was that one with the bullshit fucking jump and then the hard bank. Because I crashed so many times, I got second.
Oh no!
But that's it. That's it, right? Like so yes, they're super easy, but a few things that I wanted to touch on because I know we're already starting to run a little long, and I haven't even gotten through most of our discussion points. But I do like the upgrade system in the game. I particularly liked it at the time because it wasn't present in a lot of other racing games that were around then. Like I used to play a lot of like Cruis'n USA on my N64 or like Mario Kart, obviously, things like that. And that sort of thing wasn't built in. So I thought that was a really neat addition to like, you gain your money, whatever they call it, like what the hell do they call them? Like turgets or something?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Turtlins.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Turtlins.
Turtlins. Yep.
Little turds.
Yep. Turd nuggets that you get for winning. And by the way, best strategy for that is just set, because you can set how much like each racer wins each track. You can just set it to be winner take all. Just do that every time. And like if you feel like you're not going to get first place, just quit the race and start over. And you'll always get the maximum amount of money every time. So, but yeah. But I thought that was fun. You get your winnings and you go back to Watto's workshop and you buy the upgrades. The upgrade menu, to your earlier point, is atrocious, by the way, because they were trying to do this like in-world thing where like Anakin is standing at Watto's like, shop, and he's got all the parts like hanging on like an automated like line that just sort of like, goes by you as you're selecting which one you want to buy. So like,
the junkyard is a lot better,
I guess, but also it's really unintuitive because in order to get to a certain part, you have to cycle through all the other ones first.
Oh, and it doesn't recycle. If you go all the way to the right, it stops.
Yeah.
If you go all the way to the left, it stops. The only place
so that
where
kind of sucks.
The only place it rotates is when you go to the junkyard. I like the junkyard. Junkyard's cool.
The junkyard is an interesting mechanic. I didn't use it a lot, but if you wanted to get like super into the meta of this game, apparently the junkyard is actually a really cool place to do that, because basically the idea there is that Watto has an item in the junkyard for basically every different stat of your pod racer at any given time, and it's random. And they will be randomly damaged to a certain level, so they're typically cheaper than buying the brand new ones inside his shop. So if you've got enough meta knowledge about the game, you can actually make money from the junkyard, and by doing that, you basically like, if you luck into finding like a higher tier item for cheaper, buy it, put it like, install it on your pod, go race, and then have your pit droids repair it to full, and then like sell it back to him in the shop, and you'll actually profit out of it, I guess.
But you have to get all 3 droids in order for that to be effective.
Oh, it's 4. You can max out 4.
Okay. Well, you can, but they don't cost much. They're only at like 1,000 a piece, and you get okay. And I'll give this one thing to the game as well. There's you can apply your own stakes to the race. So there's 3 different stakes you can apply. There's safe, there's skilled, and there's winner take all. And
right. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. That's cool. But
yeah.
But I think, okay, so you like the upgrade mechanic. So you probably, I'm going to assume you didn't play Gran Turismo back in the day.
Oh, hell no. I never got into like any of the more sim type racing stuff.
So if you say you like the upgrade, so if you're going to say that Pod Racer is better than Cruis'n USA or Cruis'n World, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. No.
I was going to say, I don't know if I would say that, because I actually really liked, I liked Cruis'n World better than USA, but
I think it's better than them both. I do. I think it's better than either of those 2 games.
Sure.
I think they're fun games, but they're arcadey types.
Yeah,
I could see an argument for Daytona USA, but I think Daytona USA is a little bit more iconic. But it's certainly not better than I think Sega Rally for the Saturn. I'm guessing again you probably didn't play that. But it's also not better. It's not better in Gran Turismo. Very few games are. But if you want to go more of the game it's like, an arcade style game, is it better than F-Zero? What is it? F-Zero X on the N64? Because GX is the GameCube. Is it better than F-Zero X? I would say no. And one of the reasons for that is that F-Zero X, even though you don't have all these upgrades, the track designs, I think, in F-Zero X are way more interesting. I think you do move faster. And the amount of different racers that have personality are present. Now, you have multiple racers in Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, but other than Anakin and Zabulba, does anyone give a flying fuck about everything in between?
No, not really. I mean, for what it's worth, they included all of the other racers that were present in the movie,
which is cool.
Well, with the addition of several other ones specifically just for the game. But like, yeah, no one gives a shit about any of the other ones.
Right. So give me some incentive to use them.
And actually, speaking of that, that's one of, I guess, maybe the criticisms I would have for the game is that by and large, so every racer has different statistics, or more accurately, every machine, every pod racer has different statistics. And obviously you can boost those by buying the upgrades that we've been talking about. But overall, basically there's a few that are usable, but a lot of them just straight up suck. They're really bad at like one particular mechanic, whether it's like turning or traction or acceleration or what have you. You can just stick with Anakin, the starting pod racer, for the entire game and upgrade him as you go along. And he is better than like 90% of the other ones. And the only other one that tops him is Sebulba, which you unlock later in the game, of course, because he's the champion and whatnot. So he's probably the best one as far as stats are concerned. But like, it's kind of it's a waste almost to even have the choice of having 21 other racers available when you don't even really need to play as them.
Not that you don't need to, you don't want to.
Well, there's no, to your point, there's no incentive, right? Like, unless you're super into that, like one random fat one with the jiggly cheeks or whatever. Like, other than that, I don't know. Like, there's no reason to play as anybody else.
Like, I don't know all the racers. I didn't want to invest that much time in it. But do they have a Wookiee racer?
They do not. Well, that's the thing, is that none of the racers are like recognizable races from like the, original movies or whatever. It's all new shit that they added in Episode 1, which I feel like unless you're super deep into some extended universe shit, like you don't care about any of those.
No. I think that's like a lot of the intro. It seems like this game was really made by Star Wars nerds, which is great for them. For me,
sure,
I don't care. I really don't care. I would have loved to see Jabba the Hutt racing around in a pod racer. I think I would play as that, even if he did suck. If he had a higher top speed and a lower acceleration like did in Mario Kart,
he'd be the Bowser of Episode 1 Racer.
Exactly. If you have like a baby Yoda racing around in a fucking pod. He's there, like the Koopa Troopa.
I'm all about it.
Somebody
make this in Unity, please. Let's do a remake.
A Mandalorian rolling around in a pod racer? Be fucking the tits, man. But no, we just get a bunch of fucking random dudes no one cares about, and they're all ugly. Like, they're all these ugly alien races that no one, I don't give two flying fucks about. They look like a bunch of...
I take that back. I just remembered there's at least one of them that was technically an alien that was in the cantina in Episode 4, A New Hope, which is the one with, like, the 3 eyeball stalks.
Because everyone was really paying attention to that. Everyone, like, it's like, that alien from that one scene, I want to race as them. That's cool. I mean, there are people that are like that, but...
Yes, they don't underestimate them. There are definitely people like that out there.
But you need a Wookiee, you need a whatever the fuck the race Yoda is, because now there's more of them. You need a Mandalorian, Jabba the Hutt.
Put fucking Yaddle in there. We need more Yodas.
Like, you need Lando in there. Just put Lando, like a Millennium Falcon styled pod racer.
I want Salacious Crumb in his own pod, please, and thank you.
Yeah. I don't even know what that is.
Chris is like, I have no fucking idea.
No fucking clue.
He's that little, like, screechy motherfucker that sits with Jabba the Hutt.
Like, why is Jar Jar not a pod racer? Like, I don't
Jar Jar sucks.
I don't care if you like him or not.
In Watto's cantina, or fucking A, I keep calling it that. Watto's fucking workshop. He shows up there once in a while, and that's all he gets because he's the worst.
That's a huge missed opportunity, though. I don't give a fuck if you like him or not. Like, how can you not make him a racer? How could you not do that? How could you not make R2-D2 a pod racer? How do you fuck this up?
I think you might be going a little far to saying it was fucked up because they didn't include like all of the recognizable episodes 4 through 6 characters.
Yes, they did fuck it up. I'm not going too far in saying they fucked it up.
Okay.
Because if I go play F-Zero X right now, I have a bunch of new characters I want to play as.
F-Zero?
No,
Can you
but here's
play
the thing.
as Jar Jar?
They took a bunch of random characters and made you want to play as them, as opposed to having Star Wars with identifiable characters, or at least character races that people can associate with. If the entire purpose in 1999 was to try to rekindle that flame of Star Wars and be like, hey, everybody, Star Wars is back, and they throw a bunch of randos at you. And it's just like, here's Anakin Skywalker and his rival. And you're going to be like, well, why the fuck wouldn't I be Anakin Skywalker?
Because he's space Jesus.
You're not giving me a reason. They fucked it up. They fucked it up.
I mean, I will say that if they allowed...
Missed opportunity, not fucked it up. Missed opportunity.
If they gave you a Jawa to race as, I totally would have been that.
Damn right, Jawa! How about Obi-Wan Kenobi in cosplay? Like he's covering his face.
Cosplay. I'm actually just thinking about that now. Having like a Jawa as a racer, and like every time he like passes someone or something, he just goes tee would be fucking amazing.
That would be great. See, this is what I'm talking about. Darth Maul in a pod racer. He'd be like a secret boss. Like you do a one-on-one Crash Bandicoot style or Diddy Kong
like
Racing style.
Luigi, where he just glares at everybody as he goes by.
Fuck yeah, with force powers, and he throws you around the fucking track and you crash and you just come back because it doesn't matter. I would be all about it.
Well, now you're just talking about turning this into like some sort of Twisted Metal clone, which actually would also be cool.
Yeah.
But
I need to play the sequel and see if they didn't fuck that up. Because I think they so missed the opportunities here. That would have been an all-time classic if they did that.
So a couple other points that I wanted to touch on.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually do think the controls are fairly tight for the game. I was mostly impressed with that. Although there is a slide function, which kind of is a little bit like the, hop drift in Mario Kart, except it sucks.
Worthless.
And it's totally worthless. I never used it. And actually, a lot of the times it makes it worse and you slide into a wall. So never used that, but the controls themselves are not bad. I actually really, really like how they implemented the boost mechanic in this game, and I'll explain why that is. So I actually think this is better than something like Mario Kart, because in Mario Kart, the general strategy is always slide whenever you can to get your boost, and that's it. Like that's pretty much the strategy. With this game, well, yes, in later ones, I would say, well, arguably most Mario Kart games at this point. But in this game, the boost actually, like, you need to be very explicit with it, in that in order to even do it, you have to push forward on your analog stick and charge up the boost until it hits a point where the light turns like yellow on your meter. And then you can hit your boost button and it'll engage. And then you can use it until your engines begin to start overheating, and then you need to lay off the gas to kind of reset them and let them cool. But the thing that I like about that is that it kind of forces the player to really consider their choice before they make it, because you're going so fast. And because honestly, some of the tracks are just fucking bananas in how they're laid out. You need to really be sure that you want to use your boost at that time, because it could spell like just you running directly into a wall. And so it made it feel kind of like I would imagine how it would feel like if you were actually pod racing, where you're like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm going to charge this up and I'm going to boost. And it kind of gives you that same feeling of like, I'm making this choice and I'm going to stick with it. Like it really makes you commit to it, which I actually really appreciate. I thought it was very intelligently designed. And as far as the sense of speed is concerned, I thought they actually did it too well. I would say maybe too well in a lot of cases, but I think that again goes back to the track design flaws. If you're going to make a game where your pods are regularly going like 500 or 600 miles an hour, maybe don't put a shit ton of hairpin turns in there.
Or rocks.
or rocks. That seems like a bad idea. Again, like the cutscene thing was a bummer, but the PC version had it, so that's cool. I was actually kind of disappointed with the theatrical score inclusion. So not that it's there, because I like that it's there.
It's great.
But there's only like 2 songs, I'm pretty sure. Like I could be wrong. I'd have to look up like the soundtrack to make sure. But while I was playing, I felt like I just heard the same 2 fucking songs over and over and over again. It was either Duel of the Fates or just like the, Star Wars theme, basically, and that was it. Which is weird, considering you have like 25 tracks and like 8 different planets. Like the least you could have done was have a different track for each planet or something. But I don't even think they did that.
I actually think keeping the soundtrack that was there, limiting their soundtrack, I think they could have found someone to do more varied and more original tracks, because it just seems so serious. And pod racing, even in the movie, it didn't feel very serious. There's not any levity to it whatsoever. And I think this is the kind of game, in a Star Wars game, like, you don't need to go full on levity, but just a little bit of levity. And the music there, I don't think gives that flexibility, as good as it is. And as limited as it is good to have it. Like, if you had a concept where you had like a really tough race, or like later in tournaments, or it's really tight, you could go for those John Williams scores and you can have a massive impact. But just playing them all the time does take away from the quality that you are hearing. It's like, okay, I've heard this and I'm done.
I guess that's true. Yeah, because if you hear Duel of the Fates like 30 times, then suddenly it kind of loses all of its gravitas, right? Mm-hmm. So I get that. Yeah.
It's a really tough race. I'm listening to Duel of the Fates as I'm 15 seconds ahead again on the first lap.
Right. I mean, don't get me wrong. Duel of the Fates is probably one of the best things to come out of the prequels, but still, you can only hear it so many times in a row. So a couple other things real quick. I was kind of pissed off by some of the crash detection in the game. I don't know if you had this problem at all, but
yes.
There were a couple of spots where I allegedly crashed when I know I either super fucking did not, or I had no control over it. And there was one track in particular where it's a cool mechanic, for the record, where you're, racing along as you normally do, and then you suddenly come up against this just dead end wall, and you're like, what the fuck, where do I go? And as soon as you get close to it, you dive down into a tunnel, and the game does this automatically, right? Uh-huh. So it's a really cool thing, and I like the transition. But at least one time during that automatically controlled transition, one of the engines of my pod apparently clipped the geometry of the level at some point during that, and it just blew up and flew the fuck off, and then I exploded and died, and I had 0 player agency through this whole thing. And I'm just like, cool, that probably shouldn't happen. I don't know why that occurred. But there were a couple of instances similar to that where I think maybe the hit detection is a little hinky, and I crashed for no good reason.
And I experienced that a lot too. I think a similar level, I know it's the same one. It didn't come to a dead end, but you would go over this certain portion of the map, and then you would go up and you would start hovering, and you were kind of in a vortex, and you had to avoid things. Like all of a sudden you were in a space shooter.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, there'd be times I would hit rocks in there, and I swear to God, I avoided them. But yet one of my engines would clip out, and then I go careening into the void and then explode.
Well, that section in particular, by the way, actually was a little irritating because it kind of incorporated some of that like fuck you design that we talked about in our Sonic episode, where you come around a bend, but you come around it so quickly that you have no time to react to what's coming at you. And so like you almost have no option but to just crash face first into, like an asteroid or whatever. So that's kind of irritating.
Yeah, and I can say, like, in terms of controls, once you're in that space, once you're in the flight space, for me, it's not bad because up is down and down is up. But if you're not used to that and you go into that section not knowing that's what's going to happen, you're going to be pissed. It's not going to be fun for you because you'll be pressing up and you'll be going down and probably crashing into everything. So I will say, if that's the way you play, and you will not enjoy that that section. But I still won after all the times I crashed. So there's that.
There is that, yes. So I'm going to close out my stuff here with just my this is my Star Wars nerd minute, okay?
Go for it.
Yeah. So the game hold on, let me push my glasses up on the
actually.
All right. So actually, this game does not adhere to the canon of the Star Wars universe, specifically regarding top pod racer speeds. You see, in episode 1, both the film and the novel, Anakin's pod racer was clocked in at roughly 585 miles per hour, granting it the title of fastest pod racer in the galaxy. However, in episode 1 Racer, any pod racer tops out at 650 miles per hour once you fully upgrade all their parts, and that is not even including boosting. In fact, there is one character in the game who has double the boost amount as Anakin, and therefore tops him out at somewhere around about 1,250 miles per hour, which canonically is far too fast and therefore not accurate.
Maybe they meant kilometers.
I mean, no, because they measured it in kilometers too. They give you both measurements. It's just... It's vastly overpowered, is what I'm saying.
OP.
Also, for the record, Anakin like never would have raced on like, you know, the 7 other planets that are in this game other than Tatooine.
Yeah.
Because he fucking never left that planet.
That's what he did in his spare time after he went into Jedi training.
Yeah, after he left his mom behind and, you know.
Yeah. This is in between episode 1 and 2 now.
Whose name is Shmi for
Shmeagol.
reason.
She lost her precious.
She
life.
did, because according to an actual line in that movie, she is very heavily implying that Anakin Skywalker was immaculately conceived, which is fucking bananas. But
hooray.
Which, by the way, is explained in the extended universe. So if you ever want to talk about that, you know.
I wonder if that makes Anakin Palpatine's grandson. I mean, wouldn't that be wild? That'd be like a completely plot-breaking point. Like, no one would like that, would they?
Are we going down this path? Do you want to go down this path? Because we can go down that path, and I can tell you about how in the extended universe they actually explain that Palpatine fucking created Anakin Skywalker through dark force powers.
See? That's how you have grandchildren.
Canon.
That's how you have grandchildren. That's how they happen.
He harnessed the ability that he spoke of in, I think it was actually episode 3, when he talks to Anakin, where he's just like, well, the Jedi would not tell you about this power, or whatever, where, like, you know, the whole thing about Darth Plagueis the Wise, where he was the only one that somehow figured out how to create life from the Force, but, you know.
With arms wide open.
Yes, exactly. And so it was implied and therefore like canonized later in like a publication or something that Palpatine, aka, you know, Darth Sidious, had figured this out and had used the dark side to actually create Anakin and place him into the womb of Shmi with the hopes of turning him into like the ultimate Sith or whatever the fuck. Like that's a thing that happened, man.
So how do you know that Anakin didn't do that with some random chick on whatever planet Mary Sue's from?
Man, I don't know. I mean, why don't we talk about why apparently Mary Sue's parents somehow like got skipped in the Force inheritance? Like
what's her fucking name again? I can't fucking remember.
Ray. Yeah, Ray the all-powerful, yes.
I don't want to keep calling her Mary Sue because someone's going to get bent out of shape about that.
She fucking is, man. Whatever. God, I fucking hate those new movies. Anyway, so yeah.
We are talking about episode 1.
Racer. Now this is pod racing. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say on it. Here's, if you recall, I said it towards the beginning of the episode that my impressions of this game were very much colored by the version that I played, if you recall.
Yes, I think mine were as well.
It is not the N64 I was talking about, though.
Right.
It is the PC version, because that's the one that I've been playing recently leading up to this episode. And there is a very important distinction in that version, and it's not the original release. I am playing the re-release that was on Good Old Games, and the important distinction there is that they touched it up insofar as it runs at 60 FPS.
Ooh.
Which is way different. So the original ones ran at 30, if I'm not mistaken, and or possibly even lower. I don't recall, but
it wouldn't surprise me if they did run
30.
at 60, because racing games are pretty good to run at 60 frames per second.
What's that?
I don't know if they don't. I'm not saying I know, but racing games, it's pretty easy to get racing games to get it for 60 frames. So it wouldn't surprise me if they were. At least the Dreamcast version.
Well, yeah, but I don't. I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that the N64 version of this game was not running at 60 FPS.
Even with the expansion pack?
Yeah, even with the expansion pack.
Okay.
And someone could probably fact check me on that, but I honestly think that is a huge difference because I compared the two. I played the N64 version today, actually, day of recording of this, and then played the PC version release on GOG, and it is like night and day. The PC version controls so much better. It is so much easier to see things. It's a far superior experience. Like,
okay,
the controls comparatively on the N64 felt sluggish.
Okay, are we talking the PC version of the N64? Are we talking about the N64?
No, we're talking about the N64.
Original hardware.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Sure, yeah. No, and so I think that actually is a big difference. And honestly, that's part of, I think, what is coloring my perception of it now. But for the record, I thought it was a good game then. I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and there is that. But, and this is kind of just naturally segueing into the last bit here, but if I was going to recommend this to someone now, I would 100% say plug a wired controller into a PC and get the re-release on Good Old Games, because that is a superior experience to the original release, like, bar none.
However, would you recommend that they get the Good Old Game release, period?
What do you mean?
So does it hold up today even if you get the Good Old Game release? So would you just recommend them getting the game on Good Old Games? Or you're saying if they have to get the game, get it on Good Old Games?
I see what you're saying. No, I actually would recommend it still. And I don't know if you would, because I feel like your sentiment on it is a little different than mine. But I actually still think by and large it's an enjoyable racing game. Like, yes, it is actually pretty easy. And yes, there are some frustrating track designs. But particularly with the PC release, because I think it does, because of the FPS, you do get a better sense of that speed that the project leads were talking about trying to sort of capture in this game. And it feels really good to play. It honestly does. So yes, I think this is something that if you've never experienced it, I still think it's worth checking out.
I think we have our first full-blown disagreement. Shane,
wah, wah.
Well, maybe we've done it before. I don't know, but this is the only one I can really remember. I think this is the one I'm going to take to heart, because I do not think this game holds up. Okay. And I will tell you why. If you have it on the N64, go get F-Zero. It's a better game. If you have a Dreamcast, I don't know. There's probably a better game. Metropolis Street Racer. Go get that. In fact, if you need to get a fast racing game, just go for F-Zero in general, or Wipeout. Again, I don't like Wipeout. I kind of prefer this a little bit to Wipeout. I'm not a big fan, but I definitely prefer F-Zero to this game. And there's plenty of arcade racers that are just better than this game. I do like the fact that it doesn't have, the arcadey time extension shit that you find in all the Sega racing games. But still, right. I find the Sega racing games more entertaining. It's just bland. It's too easy. It's ugly. Again, I haven't played the PC version. Like you said, they touched it up.
I will say it definitely looks a lot better in the re-release. It
has no character. Its license, I think they don't do enough with it. And when they do things with it, it holds it back, going back to the soundtrack. I just think there was a lot of potential here that wasn't realized. And I haven't played the sequel. So hopefully they did that in the sequel that came out on the PS2. And then came out again on the PS4. You can get on PS2 classics on the PS4. But I haven't played that. So I don't know if they fixed it or they did anything with it. I don't know. But so many missed opportunities, and there are other games that are so much better and provide that sense of speed, and I think just do it better. And I don't think it holds up anymore. And that's a shame, because when we were thinking about picking this episode, this was a game I actually remembered fondly and looked forward to doing an episode on. And I just can't say I have the same feeling after playing it again this week. I'm not there.
No, I mean, that's a fair assessment. I for what it's worth, like, I think it's like $9.99 on Good Old Games. So there are worse ways to spend $10 for sure. And
like at Limited Run.
Yeah, well, you're spending way more than $10, but
shut up.
I think maybe if you don't have any of the nostalgia for either the game itself or even the prequels, I don't know how many people. I guess there are some people that have nostalgia for prequels now. I don't know, but as just a racing game, maybe it's not really worth the time. I think it is propped up by the license pretty heavily, but
I think so.
I don't know. I my personal recommendation still stands that I think for like $10, you can get $10 worth of enjoyment out of this game, and I actually do still think you get a really good sense of speed out of it. And I think the upgrade system is cool. So you could do a lot worse.
I think for $10 you can get Super Racing Neo or whatever it's called on the Switch too. So there's that.
That is true, yes.
And that's better.
But it's not pod racing.
It's not pod racing, and it's not Star Wars. And you will not get to race.
You can't hear Watto like grumble humming the Cantina theme like on the statistics screen.
I didn't even hear that on the Dreamcast. Maybe that's why. That's ruining my
that was the deal breaker.
That's the deal breaker. He's not
That's it.
humming Cantina themes in
more
my
Watto.
sweet ears. Why isn't Watto a pod racer, by the way?
Because he is too busy being a savvy businessman, obviously.
That should have been maxed out pod racer right there is Watto. You should have had the best pod racer.
Watto.
Yes, absolutely. Another missed opportunity. Makes my point. All right.
Break it, you buy it.
Yeah, so he shows us how to do it. In any case, I think that wraps up this episode quite well. We've been going on quite a bit about this wonderful, wonderful, terrible game. In any case, so Shane, where can we find us on the internet?
Well, we can find us pretty much anywhere. Just look up Retro Hangover on any social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can also find us on Twitch. We stream mostly on Sundays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you don't catch us there, you can also check on the YouTube channel. Again, just look up Retro Hangover. The recordings of all our streams are there, as well as video versions of these episodes. If you like what we're doing and you'd like to help out, we would love you to check out our Patreon, which you can go to over at bit.ly/RHpatron. And if you donate at the 16-bit tier or above, you also get access to our exclusive audio content feed, where we do rapid fire reviews of other games we're playing, as well as outtakes from these recording sessions and other fun stuff like that, as well as access to our Discord. Or you get that even if you donate at any tier, actually. So you can come and hang out and chat with us and the other patrons. So
just $1.
Yeah, just $1, man. That's it. Once a month, less than a cup of coffee. You can come and berate us in text form if you'd like. All right. Well, with all of that being said, until next time,
play with your big ballsy podly fucking joysticks.
Maximum effort on that one.
Maximum.